Hi, Katie. This is going to be my tour of the partially finished cycle track that goes from Oddie Boulevard at Pyramid down to Wells and 9th. So let's get started. So here is Prater and McCarran. Your typical Strode, painted bicycle gutter, and slip lanes. Very dangerous for cycles. I'm kind of taking some footage here, waiting for the cross traffic to stop first, and then I continue on my way. Here's where Prater reaches I Street. Heavy commerce area. A lot of people are going to be crossing in this area here. So, of course, I decide to take I Street because that's the more sane way to get to my destination. Nice, quiet, residential side street. Perfect for cycles. Unless they're speeding, cars are very unlikely to zoom by you, and this is where it's safe enough for me to actually hold my camera with one hand while cycling down. And yeah, not much room for collision here. I'm going to skip on ahead to when I get close to Pyramid. Share the road? Maybe. Okay, let me go ahead. I'm going to get to the action. Okay, so this here, where's my mouse? Sorry. Okay, I'm going to zoom back a little bit. I'm going to roll back. So, first thing I'm noticing, no protected intersection at Pyramid and Oddie, even though this is the beginning of the cycle track. The cycle track, as you can see, does not start until you pass the intersection. Even though this is a brand new, in the middle of being paved intersection, the cycle track has no junction to this intersection. And there's a ramp to allow cycles to get onto the cycle track. So it's like, once again, using my analogy, is like having a non-punctuated sentence. You have some words put together, but there's no beginning, there's no end, it's not a complete thought. This is going to be dangerous. I don't know why they made it this way. They should have created the intersection with the cycle track involved with it. So big mistake right there. Lost opportunity. Let's just continue on. As I'm continuing down the road, and I'm going to speed it up a little bit here. Here is your 10-foot wide two-way cycle track. Right now, I know it's like half asphalt, half sidewalk. Why? Doesn't make any sense. Just make the whole thing concrete and have it continue down, put a stripe down it. It'll be just like what was on Evans Street, close to McCarran, where you have a painted line going down a very wide sidewalk. This is the way it should have been done all the way down to 9th Street. With an added buffer, I would add, but I'll get to that in a moment. The drainage is out here. The curb steps up, then have a buffer, and then have a 10-way cycle track, a 10-foot wide cycle track going all the way down, which is shared access for pedestrians and cycles. It would work. You're not going to have a lot of pedestrian traffic through here. Now, if you say it can't be, if it can't be done because you have to separate the pedestrians from cycles, well, then that means we're going to have to get rid of the Tahoe Pyramid Bike Trail. We're going to have to get rid of the downtown Riverwalk, because that's exactly what should have been done here. Just shared access for pedestrians and wheeled pedestrians. I'm not sure. It might have looked good on CAD. Okay, let's continue on down. And the other thing too is, did you notice the sign back there says share the road? Well, there's no need for that anymore because now we have our own road. Okay, so probably don't need that sign anymore. But yeah, all of this is just nothing but road. There's very few entry and exit points, and all of the entry and exit points for cars have to go over this hump. So that means that when cars are making a right turn to get into this parking lot here, they have to go over a speed bump. So speed bump, buffer, and then 10 feet of access for cycles and pedestrians. And there should have been another hump on the other side to prevent this driveway access from going through it too fast. They should have had like kind of like a slight angle up, so that way it's a visual and tactile feedback for the driver saying you are now entering another type of mode network's crossing. So now this is where things get weird. All of a sudden here there begins what looks like is a planned buffer area between the cycles and the pedestrians. Why? It doesn't need to be there. Put this buffer over here where the cars are. Sounds a little bit weird because I have it going fast. Now, okay, drainage, great. More drainage over here. Okay, question mark. Why? Don't know. Again, drainage, curb, buffer, cycles, and then pedestrians. Pedestrians and cycles, put them together. And once again, another continuous sidewalk. Great. Now, this right here, this wall going into this little residential area, don't know why the retaining wall is there, but this would be a great place for filtered permeability to allow pedestrians and cycles to come through this residential area and enter the pedestrian network. Maybe they're thinking about doing it. If not, they should really think about doing it because that's their access point to get to this pedestrian place. And all of a sudden here, with this buffer in place, we got 15 feet of room. So there is plenty of space. Now, maybe perhaps people are thinking, well, automobiles need to have an emergency place to stop. If they have an emergency, they have to be able to pull over as to avoid congesting traffic behind them. If this were made a two-way cycle track, that would have been possible because on the opposite side of the road, you would not have to have an additional buffer, sidewalk, and cycle track. So in other words, you're reducing it down from, say, there would be a total amount of 30 feet being used here, and it would be cut down by at least 5 feet. And then I don't know how they're paving and aligning the opposite side of the road, but it seems like it would be plausible. Now, why is that important? I'm going to keep on going down until I get a good view. So right now, this street, Oddie, is being held back at 25 miles an hour during construction. It's going to go back up to, what, 30, 35? And then people are going to speed because, you know, people don't start getting ticketed until they're at least over 5 miles an hour. The posted speed limit. So that means that it's essentially going to be 40 miles an hour down this area. There should be a buffer between the cycles and the road because even though there's a curb, which is one step further away from death, when you're going to have cycle traffic coming by here and then you got cars zooming by them, you need to have a buffer when it's going to be that much speed difference. So yeah, not sure what's going on with this. And I believe we're coming up to, what street is this? 10th Street. This also could have been a protected cycle path. Not sure why it wasn't made one. One question I had, by the way, is this median here, this curb going to be there after everything's converted over? In other words, is it going to have like a buffered median with a curb? And once again, by the way, we've returned back to 10-foot wide two-way cycle track. It doesn't look like it. It should have been. Don't know why they didn't do it. And we're going to come up to something here that was a big problem here for me because this, you can't really see it because it's on a two-dimensional screen, but this right here, that is dangerous. Hopefully that's only temporary. I'm really hoping so. Not only should this been another, because this is Rock Boulevard, this should have been another protected cycle, protected intersection. But you also have a 6 to 8 inch dip right there in the cycle track. And the sidewalk ends. I'm not sure how this is going to be handled. Hopefully this isn't finished. And I have to wait for the light to turn, so Yeah, okay, so cut to the next video. Once again, see, we're kind of in people's backyards. It's an arterial. This is a road. It's not a strode. So this would be perfect for having a buffered space between cycles and pedestrian. Sorry, between cycles and automobiles. No one's going to be stopping here unless there's an emergency or unless they just want to stand there and watch cars pass by. 15 feet of room on one side of the street would have been fine. Continuous sidewalk. This is great. This is actually really good because see how there's a height difference between where cars are coming in and where the cycles are. That means that it's a bump. The bump should have been placed a little bit further back, and the pedestrians should have had that bump to protect them as well. In other words, slow down the cars before they get to either pedestrians or cycles. But it's still a bump, and that's a good thing. Continuous sidewalks. Here, it's kind of built like it. This is a little bit better. The speed bump to get people up to the level, the grade level of the cycles and the pedestrians could have been a little bit more abrupt to force people to slow down even more when they get to this area. Because right now it's kind of built like a higher speed ramp. See over here on the very right side, past this big cone here. That's going to not really slow people down too much there. And once again, we look across here. A buffer between the pedestrians and the cycles. Why? If there's going to be a collision between cycles and pedestrians here, what, 10, 15 miles an hour? Come on, that's not bad, right? Very low chance that would even happen. Why? Because we can look at the example from the Riverwalk. High amount of pedestrian traffic, high amount of cycle traffic going through. People ring their bells if they pass each other. And since it's nice and wide, it allows people to have more room. Putting a buffer here in between there actually makes things a little bit more dangerous because there's less room for the cycles and the pedestrians, and you can't really get around each other very well. And I guarantee you there's going to be pedestrians walking down this cycle path. I guarantee it, because they're already doing it in downtown with the micromobility lanes, and those are actually buffered and separated. And as we come to this corner here, this is where the current project ends. And once again, I face another really big dip here with another drainage thing. Look at that. Oh my God. So dangerous. And we get back to normality across the street here. This is where I had to stop filming, and I started filming at Silverado because I had to get onto the car network to continue cycling. I couldn't stay on the bike network. And holding a camera while you're in 35 mile an hour strode territory, can't do it. Can't do it. I mean, you could, but not advisable. Okay, there we go. Silverado. Yeah, we all know what this is like. I'm just going to skip by here. But once again, actually, I should mention, if they are going to start making the two-way cycle track from one portion of the street to 9th, this is where they should have started it. Because major commerce center, after this, hardly anything. And when you get to the interchange between Oddie and the 395 with the overpass, having a 5-foot wide cycle track on each side is going to cause more congestion and more hazards, more places for collision between road traffic and cycle traffic. So you want to minimize the number of collision points, and the way to do that is to have a two-way cycle track on one side of the street, one side of the road, excuse me, And yeah, so they should start it here. They really should just have them bring it out here. I don't have any footage of crossing the Strode at the interchange because I had to fear for my life. I was stuck in between lanes. People were trying to get around me on either side of my bicycle. There was nowhere for me to go. I just had to keep pedaling and get out of there as quick as I could. I continue on after the interchange, and this is a cycle track, or a cycle lane, excuse me. It's posted as a cycle lane on the other side, but on this side there are no signs. And once again, I'm coming to cross streets that could have filtered permeability for cycles and pedestrians. People kind of made it that way, either by carving their way through, you know, chain link fences, or yeah, I don't know how they did that. But anyway, as I continue on this way, the current infrastructure for bikes ends, and you end up with about maybe 2 feet of space on either side of you. This is a proper road. There's people's backyards, no cross streets, plenty of clear space on either side. And so that means that plenty amount of room for a buffer and a two-way cycle track on either side. And this is before Sutro, I believe. Let me double check my map real quick. Yeah, this is before Sutro. So yeah, this should be a two-way cycle track. Plenty of space. Okay, next video. Let's see here. So this is after Sutro. Now we're starting to get into a semi-residential area. Technically, this could be made as a 5-way cycle track on each side of the road. It would work, but we're coming up pretty soon on Sadlier and the what's it called, the experimental agricultural area, which is going to be turned into more housing eventually. So yeah, just keep it on one side of the road here as well, because again, fewer points for collision, and people coming in and out of their driveways, they're not going to be at a high speed anyway. You create the parking space inside the road, curb level goes up, have no buffer needed because there's going to be parking space, I would imagine, and then 10 feet for cycling and pedestrians. That's all you need. So 15 feet maximum would be required. If you do want to have an extra buffer, well, I guess you could, but why? Because there's going to be parking space. So it would be just like 5th Street with, you know, the cars acting as the buffer for the cycles and the pedestrians. So 15 feet maximum could be required, but it could be as low as 10 feet. And then, of course, continuous sidewalk across these little side streets. Force the cross traffic to slow down as they're crossing the cycle and pedestrian networks. As you cross Sadlier, here's the interesting thing about this. Across Sadlier, next to the agricultural area, there's room for parking, but it says no parking. But yet they kept the cycle lane out here as though there were parking space, which is kind of crazy because it's encouraging people to park there. Whatever, okay. We're going to get rid of this soon, so it's kind of a moot point. As I come down to 9th Street, of course, we all know what happens. Everything ends. So this definitely needs to be a protected intersection for people crossing 9th to get to the cycle track that heads down to 9th and Record. And yeah, two-way cycle track on this side. As more things progress with the Reno Sparks Livestock Event Center and the Reno Rodeo, you could put a cycle track on the opposite side too for that area if you wanted to. I mean, it's their property. They can do what they want to with it, but honestly, it's not really as needed because there's plenty of space there. I mean, you know, I would get rid of the painted bicycle lane and just raise it up and put cycles along with the pedestrians. But you see what I'm saying? It's like 10-foot wide throughway, shared access for cycles and pedestrians, plenty of space. So if you're going to make the sidewalk 10 feet on one side, just paint a line down the middle of it and it would be perfect. So really, that's about the end of this. I cycled back. I broke the law. I cycled back on the wrong side of the road. I couldn't help it. There was nowhere for me to go. I had to make a left turn on Sadelier to get home because I can't go down through here. Forget it. Impossible. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you for watching. And hopefully this was, informational, and hopefully I can get some feedback from everyone. Thank you.